Hey, everybody, excited to be with you on another episode of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast. I'm going to get into the episode here with our awesome guest. But before I do today, this episode is sponsored by Wisconsin Discount Properties. And I want to tell you about a deal that you guys probably missed out on, a hot deal. We had an upper lower duplex in Green Bay out to our buyers list. Our buyer picked it up for $225,000. It was a three-bedroom upper, three-bedroom lower, split utilities. And as is appraisal, they just got it back and texted me this morning. It as is appraised at 275. So they made $50,000 in equity just by buying the property without sticking a dollar into it. So those are the kind of deals we put out every Monday. We're putting out 2 to 5 deals a week that are available to our buyers list. So if you want to be on that buyers list, just go to wisconsindiscountproperties.com, put your information in, and you'll start getting the emails and texts with the info to those deals. All right. All that to get into our episode today, I've got my good buddy here, Mr. Tyler Kabat. Tyler, what's going on, man?
How are we doing, Corey?
We're doing great, dude. Excited to be seeing your beautiful face again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Tyler and his wife Nicole own a company called Doorway Travel. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Awesome. And they are in the short-term rental management space. And so one of the reasons I want to have Tyler come on today is the NFL draft is coming up. That's a huge topic for a lot of people that are in Northeast Wisconsin. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. We're going to talk just about short-term rentals in this area and all over Wisconsin a little bit, what's happening with those. We'll get in all kinds of fun stuff. But Tyler, start us out like a little bit. How did you get into real estate first and then into the short-term rental management side of things?
Yeah, so I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was like 19. And I know
Yeah.
that's like where everyone's story starts, I swear. It does put you into that mindset. You start to realize there's another way to kind of live life.
Mm-hmm.
And real estate is a great tool to create freedom for yourself and your family, and it can create generational wealth if you
Mm-hmm.
really get into it. I read it at 19, didn't do anything with it. And then what was the year, Corey, that we met? 2020. I
Yeah.
started working for your company, the wholesaling company,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when we really started buying real estate. We actually bought our first property from another wholesaler. So, I mean, plug to wholesalers out there. I think everyone that's getting started in real estate should try to get on everyone's buyers list
Mm-hmm.
because that's how you make money. I know you opened the episode with a deal that was out there. That's a great deal on paper,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you don't have the time to find the deals, I think wholesalers are a great resource to help you lock the deal up, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can focus on what you're going to do with the property from there.
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, we've bought a number of properties. I think we own 20 units now. 14
Nice.
of them are in the short-term or mid-term space.
Wow.
Six of them are long terms. And then we launched Doorway Travel just 2 years ago. And we started taking on clients ourselves, which was kind of a new experience.
Yeah,
And here we are 2 years later, and we're still growing that PM company.
that's awesome. And how many units are you guys managing now for other people?
Yeah, so we've got 38 units under contract. I always kind of lump our 14 into there. So I guess we
Sure.
got 24 units,
Okay.
client properties, and we've got another 4 to 6 that are in various stages of onboarding. So
Okay.
should be cresting 40 units here pretty quick.
Very cool. Very cool. And before this, when we were talking, you guys are expanding a little bit outside of Northeast Wisconsin now. Talk a little bit about that. What's happening with the future of Doorway Travel here, where you guys are headed with the management side of things?
Yeah, so I think we just started evaluating what we want to do with as a company, what kind of goals we have. And
Mm,
I think for us to grow, we can continue to eat up market share in Northeast Wisconsin. But I also feel I don't like the word saturated, but there's only so much opportunity in any given market
right.
based on how many people are traveling to that area. Obviously, Green Bay has Lambeau Field, so that's like the hub of vacation rentals for Northeast Wisconsin. We're based in Appleton. We own and or manage a handful down here.
Yeah.
There's a couple here in Oshkosh, Fond du Lac. You can get out on Lake Poygan, so there are some opportunities here locally. But I think the real opportunity for us to grow as a company is to get up into the Northwoods. So we are looking at some properties up in the Eagle River, Phelps area.
Love
We've
that
looked at
area.
some up near Saint Germain. we want to move up that way. I think there's some opportunity to work on some really cool properties.
For sure.
And, we're always evaluating why did we get into this business? And at first it was out of necessity, but
Hmm.
vacation rentals are fun. People are on vacation, they're with their
Hmm.
families, they're making memories, and to be able to put together a cool product and let people experience it is a really rewarding experience. It's a cool way to make money.
Yeah,
And I think getting into the Northwoods gives us more opportunity to grow, or we're not super restricted to these tight metro areas.
for sure. No, that's exciting. And I love the Northwoods. I think, several people at the end of this episode, we always ask favorite place to visit in Wisconsin or tradition. And more often than not, I mean, I would think the repetitive one is the Northwoods. People love
Yeah.
going up the Eagle River Monocacy area. It's such a beautiful place. It's my heaven on earth up there, honestly. Like I live in Door County and I love Door County, but if it was up to me, I would I would rather live in Eagle River, someplace over there on a lake. Like I don't know what it is about the area, but it's just so peaceful and so beautiful. And there's so many lakes and so much fun stuff to do, fish,
Yeah,
do whatever.
agreed.
Winter time if it's cold enough. You've got snowmobiling, ice fishing. It's a good year round market too for short term rentals.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You know, locally here, there is ice fishing, but it's not been cold enough and we haven't got enough snow. So
Mm-hmm.
you really can't count on winter bookings in
Mm-hmm.
Northeast Wisconsin much anymore.
Yep.
We have properties that will probably sit empty for the whole month of February because there's just no one coming to the area. No one
Right.
wants to be here when it's cold.
Yeah.
But up north that far, they have snow. They've got good
Mm-hmm.
ice. You can still
Mm-hmm.
play in the winter.
Yep, for sure. Talk a little bit. I want to look at you. You mentioned you guys own some in Appleton. There's some in Green Bay, right? I think with some of the I would say I want to call it misnomers out there, but like maybe some of the thought is like if you just have, I would call it like an average property in a city that's not on a lake, it's not next to Lambeau Field, you can't short term rental it. What do you see? Because I know personally people who own some that I'm like, you're gonna short term rent that thing, and they do
Mhm.
amazing with it. But like, talk a little bit about that. Like, what is a property that can be short term rental? Is there anything that you shouldn't short term rental if you have to avoid it? Like, what are some of those properties look like, or is everything within reason potentially a short term rental in your opinion?
Yeah, yeah. So I think when you look at the property, it starts by looking at the quality of the finishes and then the potential for amenities in the space.
Okay.
If you're just gonna have a nice furnished space, it's probably gonna do okay if you're in Appleton or in Green Bay. If it's not like a Lambeau themed, but you're just in Green Bay in a high traffic area, it might still do okay.
Okay.
We always say that a short-term rental should be finished to the highest standard for any type of rental property.
Okay.
There are properties you walk into and you can just feel this should be a long-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were going to make it a short term, then I would say we need to do some rehab work.
Okay.
So I'm very honest with people when the people ask us that very question quite
Mm-hmm.
often. Hey, would this make a good short-term rental? What would the numbers look like? And I have to be honest with them. Like, I think in its current state, we can do X amount. But if you're willing to stick 10 grand, update the kitchen, the fixtures, the bathrooms, hey, this old trim from 1950s got to go, right? Because it comes down to photos. This is now
Mm-hmm.
a commercial product, and the marketplace, let's say, is Airbnb or Verbo. And it's just like someone looking on Amazon. They're looking
Mm-hmm.
for the best photos. They're looking for the product that's going to solve their need.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can do a lot with decor and paint to make something look great.
Yeah.
You see that if you look on Airbnb, but you need someone to click on your property.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it starts. And
Okay.
so you can take an average property and make it look great. I think we've come down from the peak of the market of 21, 22,
Mm-hmm.
23, and 4. We've seen lower numbers across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have been able to still perform. I think just what we've been able to do as a company. But for people putting out an average property, it's just not going to work anymore. I don't know that the numbers are worth it when you have to take on all the expenses
Sure.
as well.
What I'm hearing here, Tyler, correct me if I heard this wrong, but if you have a property in an average area, at least in a place that has people come into it, in Appleton, a Green Bay, Milwaukee, Madison, whatever, as long as you make that sucker top notch, you're going to get some bookings, and it's going to be a good investment for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
you can still pull it off.
Okay.
And
Cool.
the next layer to that is, are you self-managing or are you paying management?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have only a couple and you can self-manage that yourself, then you're able to hold on to all that cash flow.
Sure.
If you're holding on to a property that's only going to gross 30 to 40K annually,
Mhm.
you got to subtract all your expenses from that first. And now if you're going to pay a PM company 20 to 30% on top of that, like those numbers start to get really tight.
Yeah. And that I think is important for the audience to realize is long-term rental, the average property management we see is about 10% of gross rents for the management. Short-term rental is a lot more involved, right? You've got guest relations, you're working the bookings consistently versus like a long-term property management company. They get a tenant in, set it, forget it, collect the rent, make sure they don't destroy the place, right? Short term, you guys are a lot more active with each property and you got constant communication going back and forth, all these bookings and that stuff. So traditionally what we've seen, and I think you just mentioned it, Tyler, 20 to 30% is about what people can expect for
Yeah,
for short-term rental management fees.
correct. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Now, hopefully, again, as you're saying, you're running your numbers and you're like, great, if I don't have to touch it, awesome. This is a passive, very passive investment for somebody. Then, if they turn it over to you guys, is that what they can expect when they work with a short-term manager? Is it full service? Do they have to do anything, as the owner once they pass it off to you or somebody like yourself?
yeah, I think in our space, it's very similar to long-term rental management. From what I've seen from a lot of other management companies in the area as well, it is full service typically.
Okay.
You can find the someone that just wants to co-host on the side and they're maybe only taking care of the messaging, but you got to take care of your maintenance or something.
Okay.
If you're hiring a property management company like ourselves or any of the others in our marketplace, it is full service. So you can be pretty much hands off.
Nice. Very
Yeah.
cool. So it just comes down to you and the audience here. What do you want? Do you want to be hands on and keep all the cash? Do you want to be hands off and just get a nice asset? That's the thing I like about the short term rental piece of it is you're getting nice assets then, right? Like I own
Yeah.
a mix of all. We have long term and short term, and hands down, like the nice exit strategy with the short term rentals, I can turn around and sell those babies tomorrow if I needed to, and
Yeah.
I'll probably make a decent profit after I've held it for a little while, right? The long terms still great, but we're not fixing those babies up to the nines, and
Right.
may or may not be someplace I personally would want to live.
Yeah.
Where most of our short terms, I'm like, hell yeah, I'd move into that tomorrow, right?
I do like to caution investors, buyers, that when you're buying a short-term rental, if it's not in a home run location or the property itself isn't a home run on paper, will it still cash flow or at least cover your expenses, your PITI,
Mm-hmm.
if it's a long-term rental?
It's great advice.
Right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of people bought, we saw what happened in Ashwaubenon. So in a local
Yes.
market here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ashwaubenon is part of Green Bay. It's just south of Lombardi Avenue. And they decided to crack down on short-term rentals. They
Mm-hmm.
put a 6-night minimum on all rentals. And now a lot of people have sold their homes because they bought it with the sole purpose of being a short-term rental.
100%, dude.
And then that business model gets squashed, and now they're underwater,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you got to be smart on the purchase side.
That's such a great point. I've had that conversation with a lot of people. In fact, I just had a guy this week that we're recording this hit me up about maybe partnering on a deal or helping maybe wholesale a deal that he's got a lead on like right by Lambeau, right? But it's in Ashwaubenon. And I'm like, that's going to be tough, bro, because your only exit strategy here is short term rental. And if that doesn't work, because you got 6-night mins and you got all the rules, you're screwed.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
screwed. Yeah. So it's going to be, you got to get it at a much better price in this market now than what you had to 3 years ago. And I think that's important to note too, Tyler. What are you seeing as far as like when you guys are evaluating a market? Are you looking for a market that's already kind of established short term rental rules? Because I think the last few years we've seen a lot of townships, municipalities, all of a sudden now they put rules in or restrictions in. And for me, I like that because I know now what the rules are that I have to play by, and there's a good chance
yeah.
they're not going to mess with them too much more anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, anytime someone brings a deal to us, I would assume other management companies would do the same. Before I even run numbers, we hop on Google and, okay, what town is this? What is their short-term rental ordinances? And look into it
Smart.
right away so that we know going into it. Is there a 6-night minimum? Is there a 30-night minimum? Are there basically no regulations and you've got to hound them to pay your taxes every month? There's
Mm,
plenty of municipalities that are like that.
hmm
So it does start there. You do want to make sure that they allow them. and that it's not too restrictive, that you're going to be able to operate the business and make money off it. I would say we bought one sight unseen in Panama City Beach, Florida, when we first got started.
Okay.
And we chose that market because it has a strong history of vacation rentals.
Okay.
So you can still make money buying locally, or you can buy out of state and go to like a vacation rental destination
Mm-hmm.
and go somewhere where there's a strong history of that. The
Mm-hmm.
chances of them regulating that industry is very, very low.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah,
Yep.
we had a couple, and we still have a couple in Florida as well, and we just sold one last year. More so because the insurance rates and tax rates were just getting out of control down there, and with the
Yeah,
hurricanes and everything else they've been experiencing, I'm like, I don't know how much longer they're going to insure properties here. So
sure.
we got out of it, and thankfully we did. I feel bad for the guy who bought it because it was in a flood zone, and it was right by the intercoastal, right where the hurricanes hit this last fall. Worked for us. Sorry, guy. You know, sorry you
Yeah,
got stuck with
just
that
timing.
house. Yeah, at this timing, but that's great. Talk. Let's talk about a little bit. We mentioned Ashwaubenon. What's happening with the draft? The draft is coming up, and I'm hearing things from some folks I talked to that are like, "Oh, this guy I know rented his house for 20 grand a night, and he's not even right next to Lambo." And then I hear other folks who are like, "Yeah, I'm getting like twice what I normally get." Like, what are you seeing, and what are some things you guys are doing to help maximize the revenue potentially coming up for the draft?
Yeah, I swear everyone seems to know somebody that got 30, 40 grand for the weekend.
Yeah, I haven't met
Um,
him yet. I just keep
I
hearing
still
about these
have not met
elusive
these.
people. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so they're out there, and my personal take is it's got to be the teams and the media outlets.
sure.
They're like, hey, we got to lock down a spot, or who's bringing in the draftees. They invite a number of first round pick draftees to be in town with their family,
Yeah.
so they're paying whatever they got to pay to get them. We've priced everything quite high.
Okay.
And our plan is to kind of hold it there. We
Okay.
do talk with a lot of people in the space to see what they're seeing come through the market. Um, and we're watching the numbers coming out by the city because they're putting out some great data on how many
Oh.
listings there are. So
Oh.
there's normally about 200 listings live for like a home Packer game
Okay.
during the season. And as of I think last week, there's 450 listings live just
Wow.
on Airbnb alone,
Wow.
and they expect to see over 600 total by
Wow.
the time you're a typical homeowner that wants to rent out for the draft. So the volume of properties is increasing exponentially.
Okay.
The big question really is how many people are going to come to Green Bay, Wisconsin for this
Right.
event?
Right.
We saw Detroit get 700,000.
Yeah.
However, every projection I see for Green Bay is like 250.
Really?
I don't understand why there's such a low number projected to come to the area.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're just fans of the Packers, and so we're like, hey, historic Lambeau, the Lombardi Trophy, like
Right.
everything's here. And so
Yeah.
we think it's going to be bigger than it is, just because we're all fanboys,
Yeah.
or if the projections are low. Because if the projections are low at all, these people are going to have to pay to stay.
For
There's
sure.
just not enough places to stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a healthy weekend, even if prices settle low. You're still talking numbers that are going to be greater than what you'd get for a Packers game.
Yeah.
Is everyone going to get 40 grand for the weekend? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You have to remember who's traveling for these things outside the teams and the media outlets.
Yeah.
It's your everyday fan.
Yeah.
It's people that want to go spend 3 days in a city to watch their team draft and just
Yeah.
talk football and sports and drink
Yeah.
and eat their way through the city.
Yeah.
Well, that's your average family.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, are they going to pay 10 grand a night to stay? Probably not.
Right. Yeah. It's not
That's
like
just our take.
it's not like you get a lot of corporations like, hey, we're gonna fly our team in to get like a game, where you'll have the corporation maybe like, hey, we're gonna fly you to the game, or you're gonna, we're Bolt Construction, we're gonna get a house right next to Lambeau for the game or whatever. It's
Yep.
it's the draft. So you're right, like that audience is different. I also wonder the timing of this. So we're recording this as we're about to hop into February. This will probably hit next week, Tuesday, when we drop this. And part of me also thinks maybe why we're seeing a little bit of this delay maybe in bookings is like for me as a fan, I'm kind of waiting for the season to be over, and then I'll start thinking about next season. Like even though the Packers are out of it, I'm still like, oh, there's still football happening. Cool.
Yeah.
Like we have the Super Bowl coming up. Sweet. Even though I don't really give a rip about either of the teams, it's like, oh, there's still football happening. I think once that Super Bowl is over and wrapped, people are going to go, wait, what's football's over? No, like that depression starts setting in for serious football fans. And they go,
Yeah.
I got to get my fix, man. Give me my fix. And then they're going to book maybe something to the next thing they can look forward to. So we might just see a little bit shorter lead time than maybe what I think some of us were expecting when they announced the draft. We saw a big boom, big, all the major fans booked right away, right? And then now I think maybe we'll see that second round once the season is over. That's just my no data whatsoever to support opinion.
I think we're seeing the same. We have a similar opinion. I think in January, the only industry in our country that does well is liquor sales. Otherwise, every other market sees almost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting through January into February. This is just slow season for everything.
Yeah.
And booking lead times across the board have come down and is getting tighter and tighter. For the last couple of months, our average booking lead time is just short of 30 days.
Wow.
So, and that's across, 35 to 40 active listings all over
That's
Northeast
interesting.
Wisconsin.
That's really interesting.
So, looking at the draft, I think people are going to plan further ahead than that. But we're still 1, 2, 3 full months away from the draft.
Yeah.
I think it's far enough away that people are like, maybe they've planned their spring break vacations. But
Right.
people that are looking at the draft, I think you hit the nail on the head, Corey. The season's not officially over.
Yeah.
The rest of the draft order is decided by now,
Right.
but people are still thinking about football. They're still looking forward to the big game.
Yep.
I think we won't see a big boost in reservations and bookings until we get into February.
Yeah. That's interesting. Why do you think that lead time has dropped so much? Because I think for the folks out there listening who maybe don't have short-term rentals or are looking at it, like we see a lot of times, like we're booked out on ours for summertime. All of our stuff is mostly summer bookings. We're booked out a year in advance in a lot of them, but then
Yeah,
we have those gaps. We do have the gaps that, you know, they'll just book, relatively shortly. What do you think is happening with the booking times being just shorter? Are people just not planning out as far? Are they more spontaneous now? Is there any kind of data that's you guys are seeing that's leading to that shorter booking time?
sure. One piece that could be playing a factor is that a lot of our properties, in terms of percentage of the properties that we manage, are urban. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what's bringing people to the area? They're going to do a girls' night, a guys' night. They're going to a concert. They're in a pool tournament, darts tournament.
Mm,
Someone passes away, a birthday party, a wedding, those kinds
okay.
of things when you're coming to the urban markets.
Okay.
Those types of events are all planned closer to the date, I would guess,
Yeah.
right? You're not
Yep.
necessarily planning those types of events way in advance. For our lake properties, we're seeing, most of June and July are booked up at our lake properties.
Okay.
It depends on the type of properties that we're discussing.
Got
So
it.
in terms of the draft, we're talking about all urban properties. People are coming for a one-time event. Obviously, we've had the dates for this event for a year, but I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of factors at play
Sure.
for that.
Right on. Right on. Very good. We'll talk a little bit. I want to transition a little bit just into general short-term rental stuff. So, what are some of the do's and don'ts? Like, say we got some folks out here that are like either looking to get into short-term rentals or have some properties now and are thinking of maybe getting that first short-term rental. Like, what are some of the biggest, I would say, mistakes you see people make, or what are some of the things that are going to almost guarantee success when you get into a short-term rental?
Sure. I think people underestimate the upfront cost of
Mm,
furnishings, the decor, and the stocking of inventory.
yeah.
So I've seen people that look at, well, hey, this is my purchase price, they can just swing that. But then, depending upon how many bedrooms and bathrooms, you now need to put furniture in every single room.
Yeah.
You've got to have extra stock of all the linens. You have to completely stock the kitchens.
Mm,
All those the dishware, the cookware, all that stuff adds up real fast.
yeah.
And especially if you want to make the place stand out, okay, we got to do some accent walls. You got to put some things in the walls that are different besides just hanging a plaque. You can't just
Right.
go to TJ Maxx and just grab something, throw it on the wall and call it good.
Yeah.
Kind of like we touched on earlier, I think you
Yeah.
need to put a little more effort in to stand out.
Yeah.
And so there can be sticker shock on the front end if you're not mentally prepared for what it's going to
Right.
cost to make the property perform.
That's a great point.
I think there's a lot of, in my experience, a number of real estate investors look just at, well, if I can convert this LTR to an STR, so long-term rental to a short-term rental, the cash flow is better. And they're just looking at that data point.
Yep.
not taking into account this is now its own business entity. You're
Mm,
communicating with guests, you got inventory you're restocking on a weekly basis. There's just a lot more involved. So
yeah,
we have to furnish it and then you got to be able to run it continuously. It's not just a rental that you can just like set it and forget it.
right.
I mean, of course, if you hire management,
I
that
was
makes
just
it
gonna say, unless you hire the management,
that solves that
plug
issue.
for doorway travel here.
Yeah, plug for
Yep, yep.
doorway. Thank you. There's a lot of great companies out there that do it. We just happen to really love what we're doing, and so I think that shows up for our clients.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think the upfront sticker shock is the biggest thing.
that's
People
a great point.
underestimate what it's going to cost to furnish a property.
What about cleaners? How important is it to have a great cleaner, and how does somebody go about maybe finding a quality cleaner for the property?
Yeah, having quality cleaners is arguably the most important vendor for your team. So when you talk about building out your real estate team, I've heard you talk about this in the past, Corey.
Mm,
You know, when you're buying real estate, your CPA, maybe you have a bookkeeper, your insurance guy, the
mm,
title company that you're using, maybe you're using a realtor, you've got your wholesaler, and then you've got your contractors you work with. They're all part of your team.
yep.
Now to get in the STR space, you need to have handymen that are available almost 24/7. You need
Mm,
to have cleaners that can meet your standard that you set. Because at the end of the day, we live and die by reviews in this industry.
yeah.
And so if you're getting poor reviews, you guys know you own STRs,
Hmm.
you get poor reviews from cleanliness, that's going to tank your listing real fast.
Yeah. And the
It's hard to
algorithms
crawl
pick
out of
up on
that
all that,
hole.
right?
What's that?
The algorithms with the platforms, the Airbnb and the VRBOs, they will not show you as much correctly if you got
Absolutely.
bad reviews.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
I know that I'm not going to stay at a place that has a bunch of 3 or 4 star cleanliness reviews.
No. I would, but Carrie would not. She is that is her number one thing, honestly, when she looks is if we're staying someplace, what are the cleaning
Mm,
reviews? We're okay if it's a little bit outdated or whatever, as long as it's clean. That's the biggest thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So cool. I wanted to get your opinion on that because I know for us, that's one of the biggest things. Like we emphasize to our team with our properties, like it has to be impeccably clean. Like we
Yeah,
want people to review it and talk about how clean it is. That's what kind of reviews we want.
yes, yes. We have a couple different things we live by, and that is the property should be Instagram worthy every time you
Mm.
walk out the door.
Ooh, I like that.
Should be able to turn around, take photos, and put that online. People should be like, wow, that's a beautiful property.
That's good.
And two, it should be cleaned and staged to the owner's expectations. So if a client walked in the door and they went to sit on the couch, is the space clean?
Mhm.
Or am I going to get a phone call?
Yeah,
And so through those lens, that's kind of the expectation.
I like that. That's good to set those expectations too with your staff or your people, your contractors or whoever you're using to do those cleans. It's great. How are you guys evaluating properties, or how are your investors running numbers? We've used AirDNA in the past as a
Hmm.
resource. Is that still the main way for people are using to run numbers, or what are you seeing people doing, and how accurate have you seen some of these tools be with running numbers?
Yeah, the tool is as good as the data that it's extracting from and what it spits out. AirDNA is still the resource that we start with,
Okay.
but we don't rely on the initial number. So people that aren't familiar, you can put in a property address into AirDNA. It'll spit out their rentalizer report, what they think it would do annually. And then they give you like a subset of comps that they pulled that data from. We take it the next step and we'll create a spreadsheet every time we run numbers and we'll dig deeper into those comps.
Okay.
So based on the address, how many people we can sleep, the type of amenities that we anticipate having in the property, we now need to click each of those comps and see if they meet those exact details.
Okay.
Because I'm not exactly sure, they don't share their data, right? That's kind of like the secret sauce of how they're pulling their comps.
Yeah.
But sometimes those comps aren't accurate at all.
Yeah.
And like one little thing that I think people might overlook is some of the comps, it'll say that they've only been available for 150 nights a year or something,
Yes. Yep.
right? So they maybe are being used personally half the year.
Hmm.
And so the data that's coming up, the number it's giving you is not fully accurate. And then I think for us personally, we have enough experience in the space that we can lean on data points from properties we already have live in the
Oh,
market,
sure.
right?
Yep.
So if you bring to me a 3 bedroom, 2 bath ranch
Hmm.
in an urban setting in Northeast Wisconsin with average amenities, I can tell you right off the bat, it's going to do about 40K.
Okay.
If you really push up amenities, maybe you can push 50.
Okay.
If it's going to be whole home average, you might only do 35.
Right
Like you
on.
know that off the bat.
Yep.
And so you can take it from there,
Yeah. What
based
are
on
some
amenities or occupancy numbers.
what are you mentioned amenities a few times. What are the main amenities you're seeing that really move the needle with short-term rentals?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how big game rooms are.
Okay. Like
Ping pong
little
tables,
foosball.
foosball, air
Okay.
hockey, arcade games, um, decorative walls, maybe with the green turf with LED signs. Make them stand out from it's not just a property. It now feels like an experience.
It's good.
If you can make it feel like an experience, you're automatically going to set yourself above and beyond.
Okay. Very
Hot
cool.
tubs, in our experience, automatically add 10 grand plus annually,
Wow.
gross by just adding a hot tub.
That's crazy.
People
How
love to relax in hot tubs. They photograph really well. Um, Focus on outdoor spaces. I
okay.
know it's Northeast Wisconsin, so we may get terrible weather for 4 months out of the year.
Yeah.
But if you can have nice lighting, a nice spot for a fire pit, maybe a fire table, you do some things in the outdoors that make it photograph well. Again, creating an experience for guests.
Mhm.
Then people can see themselves spending time there. It's
Yeah.
going to get people to click, and you can drive your nightly rates up because you're getting enough bookings on the calendar.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is why I love doing these podcasts, dude. Every single time I'm like, oh, and I'm like, we have no hot tubs at any of ours. I'm like, we need to look at where should we add a hot tub because we have some properties on the lakes and stuff. Like, I'm just thinking about like that'd be sweet to be in the winter, little snow coming down, sitting down
Yeah.
there looking at the ice or lake or whatever it is, or the fall even. That's a great time. Yeah, get some more bookings year round. Well, how hard is it to maintain these hot tubs? Because that's my fear. It's like, hey, I put a hot tub in. They're kind of cesspools in my brain. Like, I don't know what happens in the hot tub. I don't want to know what happens in the hot tub, but like, how do
Sure.
you maintain and make sure? Because I'm thinking that's going to be a similar review, right? If you have a hot tub that's not clean, that's going to show up in review. So, how are you guys maintaining those? How hard are they to maintain and make sure they stay clean? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do it. Some
Okay.
people hire like pool spa teams to come out weekly to handle their hot tubs. I think they're a little easier to clean and maintain than you would think.
Okay.
We have our cleaning team do it. We just pay a premium at those properties to handle the hot tub as well.
Okay.
You're just using a pool vacuum, you're testing the water, you're getting all the physical pieces out, hair and fake eyelashes and fake nails show up all the time.
Really?
Those things come off in hot tubs. So ladies, just prepare.
That
If you're getting
that
in the hot
glue
tub,
is melting if that temperature's hot enough.
so just, you're using a pool vacuum, you're skimming the water, you're testing it, you're balancing the chemicals in the water. We're changing out the filter on a regular basis.
Okay.
And then we schedule monthly deep cleans of the hot tub where it's being fully drained. We're scrubbing it out, refilling it, balancing the chemicals again. It is a little easier to maintain than I think we thought going into it. I had a
Okay.
lot of fear around managing it as well. I don't ever want to hear someone get sick. Heaven forbid someone gets sick. There's some sort of bacterial infection. That's like my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
But I think if you stay up on it and you're intentional with it, because guests will let you know right away. They'll message you the second they get to the property. Hey, this water looks green.
Boom. We're there.
Boom.
Yeah. Let's
All
get that
right,
thing cleaned up.
you gotta get over there right away with some pool
Yeah.
shock
Yeah.
and balance that stuff out, and maybe you got to drain it and refill it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. Oh, that's great, dude. That's a great little nugget right there. Because you're saying that adds what'd you say, about 10K
yeah.
annually? So you
Hmm.
spread that out. Like we have like 14 of them right now. We won't be able to put it at all of them, but let's say 10 of them, we added it. That's 100 G's a year. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
your cash on cash return is pretty good when you
What's a
throw it.
hot tub? What's a hot tub cost? Like 4 G's?
Inexpensive one is about 5, 6 grand.
Okay.
Nice ones are 15. So
Okay.
depending upon the occupancy of your property and the quality of the property, so the type of guest that's going to be coming out. If you're sleeping 14 to 20 people, but your hot tub can only seat 4 or 5, like maybe you want to put a little more on the front end, but you'll get that money back within a year or two, and then
Sure.
it's just gravy from there on out.
And then what's the install look like on it? Do you have to set up a whole separate electrical panel or like how does that look?
Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert on that, but I do know you need a specific power supply ran for that.
So there's a little additional
There's a
cost
little
of budget
additional on the
for it.
front end. Yeah,
Okay.
you'll need an
So
electrician to make sure it's done
so
correctly.
10 to 20 G's roughly, but landscape around it or something, and then
Yeah.
it'll be pretty
Most of the
low.
time people have room on the patio, or whatever you got to do if you need to make it better,
Yeah,
you
just
know.
throw some block down on underneath it or something and make it cool.
Yep.
Sweet. Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I love it. Are there any other things you could advise people on as far as how do they figure out what to price their property at per night? So I bought a property, I've done everything Tyler told me to do.
Yeah.
I got the green wall, I've got the hot tub, I got all this stuff. Like, how do I know where to price the property?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'll start by adding to that, for someone that's managing their own property, which is the basis of your question there. I tell people all the time, it's easy enough to part-time manage 1 to 3 properties yourself.
Okay,
So if you have any level of interest in it or you have any level of time, you can definitely manage a few properties yourself before you need to hire management.
cool.
Now, a lot of people get into this space and they don't want to do it. They don't want to handle the guest messaging and all that. I totally get that.
Yep.
But you can definitely handle 1 to 3 for sure on your own and
Okay.
still maintain a full-time job and still take care of your family, etc. Um, the number one pricing tool for setting your price is Price Labs.
Okay.
There are other competitors out there, but it is the number one. It's called a dynamic pricing tool. It's acting 24/7, 365, pulling data on bookings in your market based on your similar comps and just what's happening in the market in general. And
Okay.
it's pricing, it's giving you that kind of that baseline pricing and it'll set it, you can almost set it and forget it.
Okay.
Now, if you really want to maximize your bookings, you'll go in and you'll tweak it almost daily.
Okay.
There's little tweaks shows up in the algorithm for Airbnb and Vrbo. It's
Mm,
going to help push you up in the algorithm.
okay.
It's going to help you get more bookings that way. But that is the best place. And if
Okay.
you don't want to pay for a pricing tool, even though it's not very expensive, but if you want to do it raw by yourself, take time and spend time on Airbnb.
Okay.
Look at competitor properties, do that
Cool.
little bit of legwork, build out a spreadsheet. Hey, what's everyone pricing for the next month? What's everyone pricing for summer months? What are they pricing for home packer games based on occupancy? You
Nice.
can do that yourself.
Okay.
You just got to take a little time to dig into the numbers
Yeah.
if you're not going to pay for a dynamic price tool.
Very
But I
cool.
would encourage anybody that's investing in the space and self-managing, Price Labs is 100% worth it.
Right on. And the platforms that you guys are seeing most of the bookings, is it mostly just Airbnb and Vrbo, or do you guys have any other platforms you're putting the properties on as well for listings that you're seeing success with?
Sure. Yeah. This is a good word of caution. So we've experimented with some other platforms.
Okay.
And Airbnb provides the best tools and protection for hosts.
Okay.
About 75% of our bookings come through that platform.
Okay.
Vrbo is a great number 2 choice.
Okay.
Their software is not as robust,
Okay.
but it still has protections built in. Um, However, we've tried Booking.com, we've been on an Expedia, tried some of those others.
Yeah.
Some of those platforms have zero protection for hosts.
Mm,
And so I highly caution anybody going down that road and wanting to try other platforms.
okay.
For example, we had a Booking.com reservation come in. They were doing a same day booking. So it was the afternoon. They wanted to come in that night.
Always a little
And so
risky. Always a little
they
risky.
always risk it. It was a weekday, so it was all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he books and he gets his automated messages right away. And he gets all his check-in details because it's same day. He's
Oh.
able to check into the property and he still hasn't paid.
Oh.
And so now you're chasing that person and calling them to get their credit card over the phone if they haven't submitted it through booking.com. But booking.com doesn't prevent them from making the booking even if their payment system is not set up.
What?
And
That's
so luckily this guest
crazy.
called us back and he gave us his credit card over the phone, but he could have stayed in our property for free and we would have been knocking on the door with like the local police department to try to pull him out.
Wow.
And
That's
so
crazy.
once we had that experience, we said we're not going to use their platform anymore.
Yeah.
And their customer service was terrible as well.
We've
On
experienced the same
par
thing.
with your cable company.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you
We've
know,
experienced that too. I'm like, how does anybody use this platform? I didn't know if it changed. We haven't used them for a couple of years now, but when we did, it was atrocious to try to get any, but like we had to try to cancel a guest and it was brutal and it
yeah,
was a terrible experience. So that's pretty much all we use right now too. I wasn't sure if there's anything different that you guys were seeing. So that's
no, they're still the bread
great.
and butter, especially in Northeast Wisconsin. I think
Okay.
Booking.com and some others are bigger in larger metro areas,
Okay.
especially outside the United States.
Okay.
But Airbnb is like the main platform here still.
what about as we're getting ready to wrap here, TK? What about like Airbnb experiences? Do you guys have any experience in that realm? I see it on there. We don't do any of it at this current moment, but like, are you guys having any success with that, or any kind of packages you guys are putting together that have been fruitful in any ways, or any kind of creativity that way?
We haven't really tapped into that yet.
Okay.
No.
All right. Yeah, same here. We're kind of just we're looking at maybe doing a few things, but it might be the juice might not be worth the squeeze, is what we're seeing.
We're starting to look at add-ons and potential upsells to improve the experience and bring
Okay.
in a little additional revenue. Things like grocery delivery or
Mm,
different types of welcome packages for people. You guys travel as a family. If you're going to stay
mhm.
in Airbnb, you arrive late in the day, and the first thing you gotta do is figure out dinner.
Yeah.
If we can have some sort of prepackaged grocery delivery that you just click and it delivers from Walmart in
Yeah.
45 minutes,
Yeah.
things like that might be a great addition that's easy enough to manage,
Yes.
especially for your investor that only manages a couple themselves.
Yeah.
There's a little upsell opportunity worth looking at.
Yeah. That's really cool. You mentioned last thing here. You mentioned protection from Airbnb. I've heard some people where they add on. There's some other insurance or something that you can make the guests pay for, or something like. Do you guys do any of that, or have any experience with that type of a thing?
Yeah, so all of our short-term rentals, we manage a mix of short-term and mid-term, some more corporate rentals.
Okay.
All of our short-term rentals have Safely as a third-party insurance provider.
Okay.
There is a couple, they do have a couple of competitors out there that do offer a similar product. So Safely provides like up to $5,000 in damage protection for every individual reservation.
Okay.
And so for us as a company, we file insurance claims with them almost daily
Wow.
for damaged linens, just stained linens that we're not able to clean.
No deductible or anything once you have it.
Nope, because it's a charge to the guest. They pay for it in their reservation fee.
Oh, cool.
And so our number one replacement item is stained linens. So we try to get out, if we can't get it out in one wash cycle, we remove it from the property and we order new stuff.
Okay.
But, someone scratches the hardwood floors and you got to bring in a hardwood floor guy. That's guest negligence in the eyes of the insurance company, and you get
Yeah.
that 100% covered.
Wow. Do you guys have any issues with the claims, or is it pretty seamless?
They might ask follow-up questions, but as long as we provide them the data they're looking for, whether it's just photos or additional notes from maybe the contractor from his invoice or something,
Okay.
then they've approved, I'd say 99% of the claims we've processed in the last couple of
Wow.
years.
That's amazing.
It's a really great tool,
That's awesome.
especially if you're looking to scale and add more properties. I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine running the business without it, to be honest.
And how do they, is that something that you could just build right into Airbnb or VRBO, or how do you guys get them to pay for that insurance?
Yeah, so there's a way that you list it as like a fee, but it looks like it's part of the booking cost.
Okay.
So it's not a standout fee, so that they don't even realize they're paying for it, the guest.
Okay.
So it just looks like it's $150 a night. Part of that $150 is paying for the Safely insurance.
Okay. Got
So
it.
it's a great tool. I mean, I've replaced appliances, I've replaced couches, chairs, the whole deal.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, we could definitely use that because it's for us, we found it's not worth fighting Airbnb because it's a he said, she said thing. And then they're going after the guest. The guest is like, no, it wasn't us. It was, and then it's
Yeah,
like
air
this
cover can
back
be
and
tough.
forth thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that just, you guys just, the booking happens. And then what's the mechanics look like of how Safely gets paid and notified that it's this booking and this guest? Is that just an automation that's set up, or how is that?
Yeah, most of that is automated. Yep, and then their payouts are just direct deposit right back to our bank account.
Sweet.
Once you got it set up, it's super easy. You don't have to think about it.
Huge nugget right there, folks. Listen, that's going to save you thousands and thousands and thousands if you have short-term rentals. I can tell you that. Yeah,
100%.
yeah, for
Yep.
sure. Well, TK, man, I learned a ton. This is going to make me a lot more money now once I implement all these things I took away
Go
from you
install some hot
here.
tubs.
And yeah, I'm gonna start wholesaling hot tubs after this. So
There
go
you
to
go.
Wisconsin Discount Properties, fill it out if you want properties. Then I'm gonna have a little subsection there if you want hot tubs. I'll just
There you go.
a little
There you
discount
go.
off of hot tubs. I'll work on a contractor with with some manufacturers. But no, this has been awesome, dude. Last question we always end with, as I mentioned earlier, favorite Wisconsin tradition or place to visit, TK?
Yeah, my favorite tradition used to be old fashions,
Mm.
but I'm almost a year sober now, so I feel like I've got
Oh,
to
good
look
for
at
you,
something
man.
else.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I walk away from the Northwoods. You said it's like, eh, I think God just like perfected that space up there.
For sure.
And to get away to the woods where it's still quiet, you're up in nature. There's nothing
Yeah.
better than diving in a spring-fed lake where you could probably drink the water because it's coming
Yeah.
right out of the ground.
Yeah.
It even feels good on your skin just to
Right.
swim in the water.
Right.
So there's nothing more beautiful than that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm totally with you, as you know. We're big fans of that. So, uh, if
So,
anybody wants to connect with you or Nicole about short-term rentals or maybe looking at getting management from you guys, what's the best place for them to connect with you guys?
yeah, they can go to our website, doorwaytravel.com.
Easy enough.
On there, they can fill out a contact us form, or our phone number is even listed. That's our business line. So either myself or someone from my team will answer, and I call back everyone that inquires about services or just has questions about STRs and just wants to bounce it off us. We're always happy to help.
Okay, cool. So if somebody just wants to pick your brain a little bit, you're cool with that, even if they're not looking at management at this point.
100%. We try to
Cool.
lead with value and just help anybody else that wants to get into the space.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate you taking the time. Speaking of giving value, this has been an awesome episode. I think there's a lot of great nuggets in here for everybody. I always say, I tell every guest, this might be the this might be the most downloaded episode to date. I'm just saying. We'll see. Help TK out with that. If you guys got value out of this, share the episode. That's sharing is caring, as I say all the time. But it really does help a lot of other folks out there. They see it, they learn, they want to get into it. And if you're out there listening and you want to get into real estate, similar to what TK said, I love talking real estate. My team loves talking real estate. So if you're not ready to buy a property yet, you're just inquiring, you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you're like, this sounds awesome. I want to get into this thing. Just go to our website, wisconsindiscountproperties.com. Just fill out the contact us if you're not ready to hop on the buyers list yet, and we'll hop on a call with you and see what we can do to help connect you to great folks like TK if you're looking to get into short-term rentals or many of the other folks that we network with and help you get started in this amazing industry that we love so much. So TK, appreciate you being on. All of you
Thanks a
guys,
lot, Corey.
you bet. All you guys listening, sharing is caring. We'll see you on the next episode.